Hi there, welcome to our winter series. I was actually I was actually enjoying that music so much I forgot my cue. I was like, oh, transported to some sort of Christmassy alpine fairyland, and it was great. So and also just watching you all in the chat sign in. So if you haven't yet, please do use the chat in the corner. Tell us where you're from tonight. It's really important to us to know who you are and say hello and where you are in the world. So welcome, we're back. So for those of you that were with us over the summer, you'll be aware that we ran a series of incredible talks from instructors and from professional enthusiasts all over about their alpine adventures. And this is our second series, and we're doing it for winter, and it just so happens we're doing it in second lockdown. As you'll all know, unfortunately we didn't get to do the in-person meets that we wanted to do this year, and every week we have a team meeting where we get together and discuss what we're going to do next. And you know, given where we are right now in the world, we thought, why not, let's do a second series to support us all during the darker months. So without further ado, we're on to tonight's show. Bear with me while I try and operate technology. I actually deal with technology for a living, which is really funny because I always fail in these sessions. Yes. Okay, a few rules which are really boring, I know, and you'll have probably heard me go through this slide loads. But just to say that during the presentation, all the mics will be muted, and that's not because we don't want to hear from you. It's just that we don't want it to be too intimidating for speakers, and sometimes it can be confusing if there's lots of people talking at once. So we try and just have one person talking at once. So there will be plenty of opportunity to hear from you. We really do love interaction. So if you've got some questions, there's no such thing as a silly question or a bad question, then feel free to raise your hand. Jenny will talk you through how you can raise your hand digitally, but that's super easy. And then we can either unmute you and you can put your video on, and then we can hear from you directly. But if you're shy and you just want to pose a question and get that answered, that's absolutely fine. Then you can just do that in the chat and we can answer it for you. And that's it really. And just to say that in the Q&A, yeah, please do put your mic and video on so we can see who you are if you want to. And then finally, we are live on Facebook. Woohoo! So please do not swear unless you want to, of course, you know. And please note that all the talks will be recorded and will be published on our website. And that's just to make sure that anybody that can't make us for any of our sessions can catch up with it at a later date. So that's the housekeeping out the way. For those of you that don't know who we are the Women's Alpine Adventure Club. Woohoo, hopefully you've worked that out. And we aim to make alpine adventures accessible to more women worldwide. And usually we do that through in-person events where we get together and we do skills shares with more experienced members and more beginners. We also have sessions where we get together and we might invite professional guides and do workshops. So for example, we had our first ever summer meet here where I live now in the Ecrins National Park in France. And we had 30 women come and join us, some of whom had never put on crampons before. And by the end of the week, they were summiting their first alpine peak, which was really, really satisfying to see and watch that. We had other people supporting each other on via ferratas, helping each other to lead climb. So all sorts of adventures that you might get up to in the Alps in summer. And then last January, we were in Hemsedal in Norway, which was again another fantastic week. You can see some of the women there. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get all of the women in one picture, so there were actually a lot more women than just the kind of people pictured on that particular ice fall. Well, I'm quite glad about that because that was quite near the river, so I don't think we'd have wanted to all stand on that ice pack and have our photo taken. But yeah, so we do in-person events, and then since lockdown, we've been constrained by what we can do in the mountains together, and certainly as large groups. So we've been running these online sessions, these online series talks to try and, you know, get a bit of adventure into our lives, even though we're all sat at home. And then also, obviously, on our website, we have things like skills videos. You can go and look up things like crevasse rescue techniques. We have articles. We've got articles on all sorts of exciting topics. A couple of the latest ones include things like what to put in your mountain first aid kit. Black Girls Can't Ski is an excellent article. I really advise you you read that. So yeah, some really great kind of editorial. And also, obviously, we've got a Facebook group where people can connect with each other. And generally speaking, all of our in-person events are female only, but our Facebook page is open to everyone, and then these talks are open to everyone. So if you know any gentlemen or boys that might be interested in joining our winter series talks, then they're absolutely free to do so. And that's it. That's enough about the club and who we are. As I say, if you have any questions or anything, then we can always go through who we are in a bit more detail at the end. Then yes, so we have been encouraging members to give us their stories for these talks. So we did an excellent round in the summer of really inspiring talks, but I have to say most of them were female instructors. And that's no bad thing, because, you know, they've got lots and lots of experience, so they've got lots of great tips to share. But we also wanted to hear from our members that maybe aren't mountain professionals, that do something else for a day job, or some people that wanted to just show and share an adventure, because I know we all have our own adventures. And people have been a little bit shy, and then we realized that we hadn't done one ourselves, and we said, well, maybe we need to take a bit of our own medicine and share some of our own adventures with you guys, and then hopefully some of you will say, oh, that doesn't look too terrifying. I can show a few of my holiday snaps and tell people that it's ace to go to so and so location. So that's what it's all about for us, really. Tonight is, as a warm up to our series, is for us to share a little bit about our alpine history and some of the routes we've done. And also we're going to share our favourite top tips from across the last summer series. So without further ado, haha, that's me, and that's my puppy. And you can see there, that's a tiny bit of Alpward, which is literally 5 kilometers up the road from where I live. Alpward, if you haven't been to it, is a fantastic destination for bouldering, for rock climbing, for single pitch climbing, and also for big multi-pitch climbing. And also it is right on the border of the national park. So from there you can get up onto the glacier, and you're in the kind of just shy of 4,000 meter peaks pretty much all around you. So really stunning location, and blessed to be here. And it's usually always sunny, which is lovely. So it was today, and you can see it was there not that long ago. So I just wanted to share a few things about my first trip to the Alps, and also then come right up to date with some stuff that I did in Norway. I was lucky not to be as locked down as some of the people in the UK and France and Italy were this summer. So I got up a few mountains, and I thought I'd share those with you, because I loved it so much that I think I'm going back. But anyway, so my first trip to the Alps was in the beautiful, I think I called it Harold, actually, my white, I call it a van, because I'm actually a little bit ashamed to admit the fact that I owned a motorhome at 27 years old. But yeah, basically I gave up my day job and decided that I was just going to be a bum for a little bit. And I had a bit of cash in the bank, so I decided I was going to buy this beautiful big white thing. And I did it in classic fashion of spending literally a weekend deciding I wanted a van, and then drove to a dealership in Sheffield and wished I hadn't, because I came away with something that was probably entirely inappropriate. But anyway, it did get me to the Alps. And I went to the Alps, well, I went away on a rock climbing trip, basically, because at that stage I was all about rock climbing. And I didn't really know what alpining or alpinism was. So I did have mountain boots though, and I was quite used to Scottish winter. So I did have a pair of axes, and I did like thrashing about in semi-frozen snow. And I had done some ice climbing. So I'd done bits and bobs, but I'd never done any alpine peaks, and I'd never been on a glacier. The idea absolutely terrified me. And so anyway, off I went. And I spent most of my time climbing, as I'm sure you'll imagine. And you can see there, that bottom right-hand corner, that was my first ever Alpine bivvy. And I was looking at one of the professional bivvies from somebody else's talk earlier this summer, and I was like, wow, we should put the two side by side, because hers looked immaculate and looked really comfy and looked cozy. Mine was like in the middle of the open, possible rockfall shoot. I'm using my ropes as a pillow instead of putting them underneath me as a mattress. There's lots of errors there. But anyway, I got zero sleep, but as you can see, I was really, really happy about it. And that day we climbed a route that is in the Ecrins. We chose it actually because it was the biggest in the guidebook. It was just shy of 1,000 meters of rock climbing. And it was all bolted, so we didn't have to worry about spending lots of time placing gear, and it was kind of well within our grade, so we were excited about that. But yeah, 21 pitches of rock climbing and 19 abseils in a day was, you know, that was an interesting Alpine experience. And then I moved on to things like Debona, which again is here in the Ecrins National Park. This is an immaculate piece of rock. I love this piece of rock. You spend maybe 2.5 hours walking up from the valley, and you can't see the peak at all until you kind of get around the last corner. And so for the last half-hour approach, you just see this lovely needle of rock. And so, yes, this was a beautiful, beautiful route, and there's tons of different ways up it. You know, you can take kind of mountaineering classic ways up it that involve just a little bit of rope work, or you can climb fully bolted routes of all sorts of different levels of difficulty. It's about 13 or 14 pitches. Debona, and you can see on the right-hand side there, you get to a proper little airy summit, which is always great fun. So again, that was kind of my new Alpine experiences, and we learned loads of lessons that day. So for example, we climbed it early in the season and we were worried about snow, so we decided to take our mountain boots with us, and our ice axes, and then we didn't bother asking at the hut whether those were needed. We just took them, because we thought we might need them for the descent. We knew we weren't going to need them for the climb. And then for some reason, even though we spent the night in the hut, we didn't ask about the conditions again. And so we carried our mountain boots and our ice axes all the way up that climb. So I've never done a rock climb where my bag was so heavy before, and I really was not loving that. So even though the climbing didn't seem that hard to us, I was pretty tired by the end of the day. And then, would you believe, to descend, we come around the corner and there is a patch of snow that's maybe 10 paces wide, that's not steep at all. So, you know, it was great that we had our mountain boots and our ice axes to protect ourselves for that treacherous terrain there. So yeah, so big learnings that we had on that, really, about carrying kit that you don't need and not even asking conditions at the hut. So that would be one of my top tips, is save yourselves the energy, and always ask all the silly questions. And then, just for those of you that don't know, I wanted to show where the Ecrins is. So you can see there, we're kind of the very bottom part of the Alps, almost quite near the sea. So we get, I would say, less snow in winter than probably further up. But I have to say that every time I go to Chamonix, I'm always just gutted by the weather. Whereas here, the weather is always pretty much blue sky and sunshine. So if you're looking for an Alpine French trip, then I couldn't recommend where we are and where I am enough. And having said that, I might be moving, but I have been here for the best part of 10 years. And I'd love to be the Ecrins local ambassador. So something that we're thinking about doing for Women's Alpine Adventure Club, I'm sure some of you have seen, is have local ambassadors in different areas. And ideally, the local ambassadors know a little bit about routes in the area, maybe have some guidebooks and stuff that you can look at, some maps that you can look at, somebody to chat to when you get there. And also somebody that can help on the ground, run events, etc. So we have put a shout out for local ambassadors, and I'll probably remain the Ecrins local ambassador until someone usurps me, because I'm always happy to come back here, even if I've moved away. So yeah, so I just wanted to say a shout out, and also thank you to Genesis, and I know that she's kindly said that she'll be a local ambassador near to where she lives in Germany, and we'll be announcing all of that in the new year, but just wanted to mention that. And so yeah, so a couple of the peaks near me, a couple of the really kind of big peaks. We've got Pelvoux, just short of 4,000 meters, and you can see that picture at the bottom there is kind of one of the reasons why I love the mountains so much, is because they just, they take your breath away. I went for a walk just before lockdown last week, and I only had to, climb kind of 1,000 meters above the house, and I just had one of those moments where everything is still and everything is beautiful, and you feel like you have the world at your feet. And then also you can see that's the highest peak near us, the Bar des Ecrins. Again, a really kind of beautiful peak above Glacier Blanc, quite a big undertaking. And also now that's got slightly more difficult because some of the ice seracs have collapsed. So there's different ways up the mountain than there used to be. But having said that, in the morning light, it just looks stunning. You don't even have to summit that to kind of get a fabulous view. Actually, both of those photos were taken from a peak that I did opposite called Roche Fario, that is like a really easy, nice first alpine peak to do, and you still get those fabulous views. So yeah, really stunning place to come and explore, and certainly a lot quieter than Chamonix area. And then finally, before I kind of hand over, I just wanted to share a little bit about where I was this year and potentially where I will be living. I don't know if I'm going to be living in Romsdalen precisely, but I fell in love with Norway so much while I was in kind of semi-lockdown there that I decided that that's where I'd like to be. So I've registered and started the process to move. And you can see roughly where I was there. I was right on the edge of the fjord, but in the mountains. And this area particularly appealed because it's very much like the Alps in terms of nice spiky pointy things, but not quite so high. So a couple of the routes that I did there, really famous summit that you see from most places down in the valley is Romsdalshorn. And this was this is like a fantastic day out for me. Basically, you drive up to about 700 meters. So you have probably just less than an hour's walk to the base of the route, and then you can put your climbing stuff on and you can climb to the top. So very little kind of, arduous walking or anything like that, and lots of rock climbing interest and a real summit. And then similarly, a few abseils to get down and walk down. We were actually lucky enough, because you can see there, we climbed it, there was still quite a lot of snow, that we were able to do epic big bum slides pretty much from the shoulder where we got off the rock all the way down to the car. It was so much fun. And another peak I wanted to mention is called Bispen. And as always in the mountains, the photos don't do it justice, but this is a really incredible looking peak from quite far away. It looks like it's kind of got like a twisted notch at the top. And again, you can drive up to not too far from the summit, and you can have a lovely walk in. And then there's a variety of, either walking, scrambling, or rock routes that you can do right again from each of the ridges up to the very top and summit. And as you can see there, kind of lovely, fantastic views. And again, I did that kind of earlier in the year where there was still a fair amount of snow, but luckily the rock was dry for us. And there you can see that Norway's got some stunning waterfalls. So it's really, really beautiful scenery. So definitely, if you're thinking about a Norwegian adventure, I will probably be up there. So look me up. And then I guess just to say that I think my favourite alpine story so far, and the thing that's given me the most reward, hasn't been all the adventures I've done on my own, which have been brilliant, but it's been all the people that I've met in the mountains. So I was really lucky when I first started doing rock climbing and mountaineering, that two incredibly strong females took me under their wing, two female instructors, and really helped me gain all the skills and knowledge I needed, made sure I was safe, and also gave me an incredible time in the mountains. And so it was with that in mind that I started to think about a club, and, you know, together with Jenny and with Lizzie and with Kate, who was also co-founder, started to hatch this plan, because I think it's really important for us all to have a space where we can get together and find strong female bodies to go out into the mountains with and play, and particularly in the Alps. So my favourite story so far has been everyone else's, which is just sitting back and just watching and facilitating everyone having a great time. And, you know, I selfishly, when I started the club, I thought, yeah, because we'll go to all these amazing places and we'll get all this amazing climbing done, and there'll be loads of there'll be just loads of routes and it'll be epic. And actually what I discovered is when you're running an event and you're doing logistics and you're on the ground, there's not actually a whole lot of doing anything yourself other than running around like a headless chicken. And obviously we're trying to get more organized so that there's less of that. But yeah, there's a lot of effort, but for lots and lots of reward. And so I'm just super excited that, you know, you're all joining us and that we can keep this club alive through future adventures. And I'm just super excited that even some of the people who have met for the first time on our events are now, I can see, off having their own adventures together, which is ace. And anyway, that's it. That's enough from me. I'm sure I've killed my time. But thanks everyone, and yeah, feel free to ask questions. We'll have Q&A at the end, but I'm gonna hand over now to, drum roll, I've forgotten who it is, Lizzie! Are you on mute?
To take back control of the slides here. Sorry, 1 second. All right, normally I'm just behind the scenes and I'm not giving any bit of the talk. So this is sort of new to me to be in front of the camera. So yep, I'm Lizzie. I'm one of the co-founders of Women's Alpine Adventure Club. I'm actually originally from Florida, which is why I've got such a funny accent, but I've been living over in the UK for quite a while and started climbing while I was living over here and quickly became obsessed with sea cliff climbing. So my entry point to the sort of Alpine experience has been through Cornish and Welsh sea cliffs. They're sort of my favorite. I'm based in Bristol now so that I can train more with my friends and be close to an international airport. So when we are able to fly and go places, I can go do that. But yeah, so I started in beautiful, beautiful Cornwall. So the picture on the left is me at a really famous crag looking out from Ecrins. And then the picture on the right is up in North Wales at a crag called Castell Helen, and both really, really favorite places of mine. So I knew that I loved multi-pitch trad climbing, and then was invited by some friends. Let's see if I can move the slides along myself here. Was invited by my friends to join them on a trip to the Alps. And I was like, yep, love this gear, you know, more pitches to routes. This sounds really, really fantastic. And great new friends, and really lucky that they were all quite experienced mountaineers, and said, actually, Gran Paradiso is a great first sort of alpine peak to do, because it's basically a snow plod. So you wake up early, you stay in a nice hut, which is the hut that you can see there on the right hand side, and you know, you go through all the things that you go through when you're making your way up a mountain, which, you know, exhaustion and self-doubt and all of those things. And then you get to the top and it's fantastic. And then you finally make it down to the bottom, and that's the picture of us on the left. Really happy having it made it down by about lunchtime, and all smiles and happiness. And then walking all the way back down to the valley, because Gran Paradiso is one that there's no lifts. It's you're walking from valley to peak. But really was a great experience, and got me addicted to like alpine adventures. And then that on that same trip, so I was out there for 3 weeks and climbed 3 different peaks, but the second one, because the weather wasn't great in Chamonix, which is why we ended up actually in Italy for Gran Paradiso, and then it continued to not be great, so we drove to the Sass Valley, and we stayed in a hut. We were going to do the Lagenhorn and Weissmai, so this is the first day. My mate and I did Lagenhorn, and this is as far as we got, because once we got to this bit of the peak, and I think we were like 150 meters from the top or something, we were really, really close. And of course, I'm a new alpinist, so I'm like, yeah, keep going. And I was much lighter than my friend, who you can see is making really deep footprints ahead of me. And we checked the snowpack, and he was like, you know, this does not seem right. It doesn't seem great. So it was like, all right, you know, solid, great times, that's fine, let's turn around and go down. And actually, when we got down, we spoke to the keeper at the hut, and he said, yeah, actually last year a team of 4 German tourists had carried on in similar conditions, and they actually all fell off the top of the mountain. So I think, you know, a good day out on the mountain is one where you come back smiling, or where you come back safe. And that was a really great lesson for me. And, you know, still an awesome adventure, and really, really great time. And I got to do alpine peaks in a couple different countries, which was fantastic. And yeah, that got me hooked. And that's when I learned actually about the Women's Alpine Adventure Club, and what Louise and Jenny and Kate were doing, and said, yeah, can I join, and how can I help, kind of a thing, which sort of leads me to my other pursuits. On our winter meet in Norway this year, I sort of got to fulfill a really long-term dream of mine, which was to try cross-country skiing. The previous time I had been in Norway to learn to ice climb, my last day I was like, oh, I've got a bit of time before I need to go to the airport. I went to a place and they said, oh, we just don't have cross-country ski boots in your size. It was like, womp, womp. So going to Norway this year, I was like, this is one thing I really, really want to do. Rented skis for the week and absolutely fell in love. So this is picture on the left is me day one, loving life. And the pictures on the right are actually from one of the beginner cross-country ski courses that we ran as part of the week. So you can see everyone in the group, like learning, listening to our amazing instructor, and having a great time. It was just really fantastic. So I think one thing that's great to know about Women's Alpine Adventure Club is that it isn't just one pursuit. You know, it's not just mountaineering, it's not just ice climbing. You know, in the summer meet, there were people doing, you know, multi-pitch rock routes, some people doing sport climbing. You know, we had all kinds of different skiing workshops going on, even in the winter meet. So there was downhill as well as cross country, and, you know, avalanche skills and everything. So there's a lot of people interested in ski touring and snowshoeing and everything. So it really is about being able to like get a chance and discover new passions and skill up in things that you know that you're interested in. But for me, this was a massive dream come true, and I'm sort of praying that somehow I'm going to be able to get back on skis this winter. You know, everything is crossed. So yeah, that was my big thing last year in winter. And then one of my other favorite alpine stories is from the Dolomites last summer. And basically one of the fun things about being in this club is, you know, we were planning on being in the Dolomites this summer. And so Louise and I, we had to go do a recce. So, you know, had to make a trip and go play in the Dolomites. So we had a fantastic time just checking out different locations and actually being able to climb together for the first time, because we weren't on a meet. So we got to go do some routes and some epic stuff. So that's the sort of pictures on the left. And the picture on the right is me learning how to go down scree. So, never done that before, was there with a dodgy ankle that was all taped up. And it had been a very long day because we weren't planning on being out that long. So that is truly the look of madness in my eyes. But it was fantastic nonetheless, and just great to have time with good friends in just absolutely fantastic places. And then to sort of end my section, I decided to copy Louise a little bit and say, my favorite alpine story, and this is a really hilarious picture that was taken without me knowing. So alpine environment is all about alpine starts, and the reality of this is part of going on adventures is having to get back home, and we had to wake up at something like 3 a.m. To drive back to Oslo from the meet in Norway this last winter. And luckily Tamsin left us her rental car her flight was first thing in the morning, but we were catching up with her and we were so tired, decided to sleep in the car. So how many members do you think are asleep in this car? If you say one, you're wrong, because there's 2 other people in there too, except they were clever enough to cover themselves with their jackets. And I just was so tired because I ended up doing most of the driving that I just put my sleep mask on and went to sleep, and found a week later, Tamsin had posted this picture of me very obviously sleeping in the front seat of the rental car at the airport. But yeah, that's my little bit of Alpine story. And now I will hand it over to the very capable Jenny.
Who isn't that capable at at technology. So I think I've got it. Yes, that's a big skill. That for me has been my biggest learning point of the Women's Alpine Adventure Club, is technology and all the stuff that comes along with it. So yeah, just following on from Louise and Lizzie's Alpine stories, I grew up climbing in the southwest in Devon and Cornwall, and absolutely loved climbing. I don't remember learning to climb. I was just kind of chucked onto it and did it. So I was very fortunate with that. And as time went on and as a teenager, I wanted to do bigger and bigger things, and Devon and Cornwall are great, but they don't have big mountains. So I started coming up to North Wales and Scotland and the Lake District heaps, and did heaps and heaps of scrambling and mountaineering, and that's the stuff that I love best, is the big mountain adventures. I'm not really into hard climbs or crying on things, so I love the big days out. And I'm currently going through my mountaineering and climbing instructor award qualification to try and encourage more people to go out into the mountains and enjoy themselves, and also look like a very serious alpinist. As you can see in the bottom right hand picture, I take it very seriously. So that's kind of how I got into lots of alpine stuff, was lots and lots of scrambling, lots of big days out, and mostly following the boys around, and feeling like my legs weren't as fit or as big as theirs. Then kind of made the logical progression into Scottish winter suffering, and kind of tried doing a lot of ice climbing and mixed, and found that actually you cry a lot on that as well. So actually I prefer to do winter mountaineering, and you don't get cold because you're moving all the time. And then also you introduce all those lovely kind of crampon axe skills, which really help when you're over in the Alps. So then I followed the boys to the Alps. I didn't really have many female climbing friends or associates growing up, so part of the big thing for me was I met Louise when I was in the Ecrins on a long alpine trip, and we were awkwardly set up by a lovely lady called Anne in the climbing shop, and luckily we got along. And on part of our kind of, I think it was a caffeine fueled drive to a crag, we kind of bonded over the need for more female alpinists, and thought maybe we all make a club and we might find some more friends. And then we kind of did it, and then like quite a few hundred people joined, and we were like, oh god, we don't want that many friends. We better do something. So this was the trip where I kind of realized that I wanted to be a bit more independent with my skills, and not just follow the boys around, and know what I was doing and participate in decision making, and actually that I'm more than capable of making those decisions and having my own opinions on things. So this was a fantastic traverse of the Weissmeet that Lizzie mentioned earlier, and it was a fab route because it encompassed loads of the stuff that I felt really confident doing. So lots of kind of rocky mixed scrambling, and big kind of fantastic alpine crests where you just have to keep your head and look at your feet. And it was a fantastic day and trip. So after that, I took a bit more responsibility for my learning and for my decision making, and kind of bought myself some books and went on a course with at Brennan with Dave Rudkin, who's got the most gorgeous eyes. And so I just listened to everything he said. And my response a lot of when I was talking to the boys that I climb with was, Dave Rudkin says, and well, Dave says we should do this. And after that, I then started to form my own opinions, as not just Dave's opinions. So that was great. Ooh. No, it's okay, I haven't broken it. So these are just a few more places that I've been touring around. I like to go to more unusual places and explore a little bit more. So Pisketch is an amazing place near St. Moritz in Switzerland, and it's kind of an alpine peak in miniature, because as you can see, there's a dry glacier, a wet glacier, some kind of alpine scrambling, and then some abseiling to get back down. And it's a great acclimatization peak, and it's kind of stuck by itself. So you get these amazing views of Monte Rosa, the Sass Valley, over to the Matterhorn, and it's just great. So it's one that I'd recommend if you're kind of touring through. And then I love the big rock stuff. So Albigina in the Bregaglia Alps, again in Switzerland, is fantastic. There's big kind of, some bolted, some trad, and it's just very adventurous feeling. And it's great because you get a little cable car up to the dam that you can see on the far left, and then stay in a beautiful hut with the best rosti ever. And then there's just rock all around, this perfect granite, which is just absolutely fantastic. It's like Zegran on steroids, without the sea, but with a dam instead. And then also the Vivanihorn, again in Switzerland, opposite the Sass Valley, is a fantastic rock climbing place. You kind of walk up 3 hours to a beautiful little hut, and it's got the most scenic toilet in the Alps, apparently. You can see it there in the top picture. And it's a kind of 3,000 meter peak with some amazing bolted routes and some more traditional stuff at the top. And it's just a fantastic playground to go up to. So just a few different ideas there for people who may be starting to think about their first trip to the Alps, or anything like that. So yeah, some great places there. So the next little bit we wanted to talk about quickly was, how do you develop as an alpinist? So how do you make that move from being a competent rock climber, a competent kind of mountain scrambler in the UK, and taking those skills to a bigger arena? So the first bit is the kit, the gear. So basically the same stuff as you would have in Scottish winter, and all kind of longer rock routes in Scotland or Wales. But the thing about the alpine stuff is you need to be kind of efficient, you need to be quick, you need to know your gear really well and be really well practiced with it. So that's why it's a really good idea to kind of get out on bigger stuff in the UK, where the consequences aren't as great of you being benighted. If you're in the Ogwen Valley, you might get me coming to rescue you, so I apologise for that in advance. But you know, there aren't that many big consequences to being a little bit late and working on your stance management in the UK. And then also getting kind of familiar with your systems, with how your rope work goes. So we on our website, on our YouTube, have a few kind of skills videos where we go through crevasse rescue. And no matter how many times I've done this, every single trip out to the Alps that I do with my climbing partners, the first day we always acclimatise and go up onto some snow or onto a safe glacier and practice the crevasse rescue, because you never know when you're going to use it. Hopefully you won't ever use it in anger, but when you do, it needs to be dialed and you need to be really confident with it. So it's worth investing in that bit of time, maybe getting a bit of instructing when you're out there or before you go, by a suitably qualified guide, just to help you so you feel more confident in your skills. And then also the kind of navigation side, which sometimes I feel is forgotten slightly, because, you know, over in the Alps there are signposts sending you everywhere. But once you get off those main tracks, you do need to be able to navigate. And maybe you're not going to be out in kind of Scottish winter whiteout, but you still need to be alert if the fog comes down, or there's kind of an unforecast thunderstorm, which does happen. So you might need some slightly different kit. So GPS or an altimeter, or you can get one of those fancy watches that has it all on, which are great. And then also maps look slightly different. We're really fortunate in the UK to have the OS maps, and which are really accurate and, you know, regularly reviewed and stuff, but in different places they look slightly different. So it's worth getting familiar with map reading and what the different kind of lines and stuff mean, because the footpaths look different and that kind of thing as well. So spend a bit of time on that. And then a whole host of guidebooks. So for different areas, you can get lots of different guidebooks, and it's worth doing a bit of research, checking things online as well. So example for the Ecrins, where Louise lives, that bottom left picture, those are 4 different guidebooks for that area. Some are in English, some are in French, and you sometimes need to spend a bit of time translating on Google Translate before you go out, checking things on websites like Camp to Camp and Summit Post, and just becoming a little bit more familiar. In the middle picture, there's the Pleasure guides, and they're really fantastic because they're just lots and lots of lovely rock climbs, usually quite well bolted, and that's a really great place to start if you love your rock and you want to take it into the kind of alpine areas. Are really nice ideas and great topos and quite reliable as well. These are 2 fantastic books that I've learned a lot from. So they're by Bruce Goodlad, a British mountain guide, and they're a kind of instructional Bible, really. But at the back of them, which is really nice, is that there's a little guidebook, and he suggests his first kind of alpine routes and ski tours, and talks you through them, and it's just a bit of a Bible. We my first trip to the Alps, we took Bruce with us in book form, and he had it in his bag, and we were, oh, Bruce says that we have to do this. So it's really highly recommended, and just really accessible as well, and not too snooty, which is quite nice. So yeah, and then what we've done is we've collated our favourite top tips from a lot of our speakers from our last series, that you can find all of their talks online, and also from some of the articles that have been contributed to our website. So there's loads and loads of information on our website, including like first aid, like Louise said, heaps of stuff, so do check it out. So top tip number 1 is from Tamsin Gay, British Mountain Guide, and guide to many TV celebs, is always wear your best knickers, and you can't go wrong really apart from that. And then other kind of top tips are, you know, backing off is never a mistake, like in Lizzie's story, you know, always making that decision and being okay with that decision. The efficiency, that's a massive thing in alpine climbing, trying to kind of minimize time, wasting time. Always take a head torch. If you want to hear a funny story about that, you can find it on Katie Keeley's talk from last series, where she somehow got stuck on a cliff in the Wadi Rum without a head torch and had to be rescued by a very famous climber. The next one is actually Katie Keeley's tip as well. Shower before joining someone for dinner in case it turns out to be a wedding. I think she had a story there about the Bedouin people, which was great. Lou Reynolds' top tip was attach your approach shoes to your harness with a locking carabiner so they don't fall down off your harness mid-route and causing lots of very angry Swiss people and you having to walk off for 6 hours in a climbing shoe. Also, the descent can be the crux. Always check out the descent. Make sure you photocopy your guidebook pages as well as taking a photo on your phone. And I think the last one is from Lou Reynolds and Tamsin Gay, who say, when the weather is bad, drink wine. So those are our top alpine tips for people. You can find lots more in the talks as well. So we've come to our question and answer session. Thank you very much for bearing with us. Hope it's been interesting. If you've got a a question, like Louise said, feel free to write it in the chat, and we can kind of ask them between ourselves. We've got some questions that we'd like to ask you guys as well, or if you'd like to ask your question in person, you can raise your hand by going down to the bottom where it says participants, and then there's a thing that says raise hand, I think. Although that's gone now. Is that where it is?
I think it is where it is, but maybe because you're controlling my screen.
Right, sorry, I'll stop now. Take it back from me.
I did see that somebody that was it Elaine? You had a question for me, which was, did I meet people as I went on, or did I have a climbing partner I knew? Really good question. So the first time I went to the Alps in the big white wagon, I was actually with a climbing buddy from Sheffield, a woman called Sari who's Finnish, and we used to do a lot of trad climbing together. And so we came away for 6 weeks together. But then after that, I kept coming on my own and meeting up with different people. Some people would come out on holiday from the UK, so I'd already know them and be climbing with them, and other people, shock horror, I met on the internet. Some popular websites that we won't mention where you might be able to find climbing partners. So some people I just literally didn't really know and met them and hoped for the best. I would say I didn't do any long alpine routes, not having ever known anybody beforehand. I definitely have a level of trust, but I definitely met people for kind of, rock routes, and once I established that they could belay correctly and we could communicate well, and we were going to be a safe pair, then we did kind of longer multi-pitch routes, and then that case led on to some alpine routes as well. So yeah, a mixture really of people I knew from home, and also people trusting the universe to supply me with good alpine partners.
I think also when you're staying at campsites and stuff, that can be a really great way to kind of pick up partners, especially like the Alphard campsite. It's just full of climbers, and you run into the same people getting croissant in the morning or do your dishes late at night, and climbers are very gregarious, friendly people usually, so there's usually kind of people to chat about and join up with. And
Jenny, you met me through the lady in the local kit shop, didn't you? So you obviously there to ask if there was anybody that might want to climb.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I can recommend Anne in Kings in Pelvoux as a good person to set you up. If you need, there's usually people around, but it can be quite intimidating going off, like you say, with someone that you haven't met before. So yeah. You do know a good story of a girl who met someone on an online forum in Chamonix, and they went off up onto the Mer de Glace, and they were attached on a rope, and he decided to jump over a crevasse. He didn't make it, fell in and dragged her in as well. She managed to stick her axe in, put an ice screw in, call for a helicopter, and they got winched out. And then when they were dropped back down in the LZ in Chamonix, he turned to her and said, "So do you want to go out tomorrow?" And she was just no. No, I don't. So beware.
I'm good.
We've got another question come in.
Yes, I think Solani's asking if
Solani, did you want to come off mute, or did you want to? You can come off mute and show your video if you want to, or if you don't want to, we can just read it and answer it. It's up to you. I'm just putting you on the spot now because no one else wants to show their face.
No, she says no.
Okay, bad hair day. I totally understand.
That's why we're all wearing hats.
As a female club, have we had any challenges to overcome? Good question. I think sometimes people ask, if we're not being sexist, which I find quite interesting, because there's men's rugby clubs, there's kind of different clubs of different varieties to suit all people. And I guess that the thing for me around that was we felt strongly that we wanted to have a space where women felt confident and gain the skills that they needed to themselves. And and we'd had that opportunity. And as Jenny said, quite frankly, we wanted some more epic female friends. So, you know, what better way than to start a club, really? So no, I don't think so. Not huge kickback. And I don't know what the other two think, but I don't think, you know, I don't think there's been massive challenges, and I do believe in us. And I think, as Jenny said, the fact that actually we kind of put a note on one of the Facebook groups saying we think we're going to start this club, and then literally I rang Jenny the next day. I said, I think we've got a problem. We've had like 200 emails overnight. Like, there's definitely a need here. So there is a space to fill. We haven't just kind of made it up.
Yeah, I think the worst that we had was really when we started posting about the first round of Alpine Stories, and there was that whole thing of, oh, you guys are being sexist, and there was an interesting conversation that went on off the back of that. But otherwise, normally when I'm putting flyers up in shops and there's guys who work there, they're like, I want to come along. Like, this sounds really great. I don't want to climb with guys. They make me feel bad. I want to be in an environment where I can actually learn and there's no egos and it's really good fun. And I was like, at the moment, we don't have a boyfriend's crash. So until then, you know.
Although there are several unofficial, WAAC widowers clubs that go around the meets. Yeah. So quite a few men bonded over their other halves being at the summer meet here in the Ecrins.
Yeah, they sort of shouted us, didn't they? They stayed in the hut at the same time as we were going up that peak in the Ecrins, and yeah, it's good. I think we've got another question in from Joanna. So she says, I go to Snowdonia, to hill walk and scramble. Love both of these. Would like to do more and progress. I used to mountain bike, but I don't have a rock climbing history, which I feel is an issue. Do I need to get a grounding of this, which I imagine is rock climbing, or can I continue to alpinism by continuing with scrambling and hill walking? I'm booked onto a winter skills course. Very good job at Place Brennan.
Fantastic. I mean, I would say no, you don't need to be a rock climber to do alpinism. Definitely not. I think, you know, some people, there are a whole host of different alpine pursuits and objective, which is what makes it so fantastic. And, you know, there are some that are just snow plods where you just need to put your crampons on, be confident in your crampons, have your your crevasse rescue if you're going on a wet glacier. And there are hundreds of those kind of routes, and they're absolutely fantastic. I would say your scrambling skills, that's mostly all you're going to need to have if you're going to do some rocky peaks. Getting good on your kind of scrambling rope skills, so maybe moving together, being able to do a bit of making a belay and keeping each other safe. Sometimes that's good if you want to use your rocky peaks, but you definitely don't need to be a rock climber. A lot, you know, if you're on graded scrambles up to like a grade 3 scramble, that all the rope skills that you use on that is more than enough. And actually you don't even need to do rope scrambling a lot of the time. There are some kind of easier in alpine grade, like for seal F graded routes. Often you don't need a rope at all, but the Place Brennan Winter Skills course will be fantastic. So hopefully that will be a really positive experience for you. Hopefully that answers the question.
And does anybody else have any other questions? Write them in on Zoom here on the chat, or you guys watching on Facebook Live.
Can we do our poll? Can we do our poll?
So
I was
going to say, if we don't have any other questions, we're going to ask you some questions. And this is the first time we're using the poll function. So here we go.
Okay, I pressed launch. Now I don't know. Apparently you're all viewing the questions.
I can see it on one of my screens. Can you guys message us and tell us whether you can see the poll?
And can you vote? Does it work?
I don't know how to vote, actually.
Yes, it's working. Yes, I can see it. I think it's because we're hosts.
Oh, we're not allowed to vote.
I think we're not allowed to vote, but I can vote as my backup computer.
Oh, that's sneaky. Is anybody voting yet?
Oh, it's only letting us choose one at a time. Oh yeah, because it's your favorite. Yeah, so there's 3 questions. So the first one is, what's your favorite alpine activity? So if you guys are watching on Facebook, write it into the comments. The second question is, what would you like to see the club do more of? So we've got options like local meets, international meets, skills sessions, talks online, how-to videos, skills articles online, adventure like our Alpine Stories online articles. Are you interested in a member's website or directory, or informal online meets? And then the third question we have is, would you donate towards spaces on a meet to sponsor someone who wouldn't be able to afford to come with us otherwise? Because I think, you know, one of the big cornerstones of Women's Alpine Adventure Club is to get women of, you know, from any place, any background, to gain experience in the alpine environment. So we want to be able to support people who might not have had a chance previously, maybe are limited by, you know, costs and things. So would you be willing to put some money towards sponsoring a free space for somebody? So those are the 3 questions. And when you've done, hit submit. And then I don't know if you guys see.
Wendy raised a really good point, which rock climbing isn't in there, but I think we were thinking winter alpine activity.
Yeah.
We're just trialing the poll.
Yeah.
So glad to know that everyone's our guinea pigs, and we did it, you know, in typical fashion, like 2 minutes before you all arrived, trying to brainstorm what alpine activities there were. So sorry about that.
Yeah, and we want it to be, what's your favorite alpine activity? So you have to only choose one, which is why we made it.
And then Avril, you've got a good question. Who do you go with for your insurance? So I used to go with Club Alpine Français, but because I was living here and that was relatively good value for money. Before that, I was Austrian Alpine Club. I don't know, Jenny, if you've got any recommendations about insurance.
Either the one with Austrian Alpine Club is that you have to have travel insurance on top of it. But BMC are fab, but it depends where you're based as well. So for the BMC one, you can have different levels depending what activities you're going on and what heights you're going to, whereas the Austrian Alpine Club is kind of like a blanket one for everything. So yeah, I tend to alternate between the time.
We've got some questions on Facebook as well, so it's just going to put one in because I know we've got some more in the chat. But Lana's asking, do you think that it's realistic to dream about a winter meet in February, or will you run your next meet in the summer, Switzerland and Dolomites? Of course, when it is safe and allowed.
We're thinking not February, because it takes us, you know, an unbelievable amount of time to kind of organize things and promote them, and so we just don't feel that it's going to be possible, really. I mean, I'd be nervous even about booking a flight for myself and wondering about whether I'd get that money back and how that would work, so let alone organizing an event, particularly as we don't know how it's going to be in different countries with people, you know, being able to get together in groups. You know, even when lockdown was, you know, even not during lockdown, during this summer, it did feel weird in the mountains having kind of slightly large groups. So I don't know, Jenny, if you've got anything to add, but I think we're just, every week we have this discussion, and as soon as we feel confident that we're able to devote the energy and time into doing something, and that, you know, nobody's going to have to lose any money or have anything cancelled, we'll absolutely do it. And of course, when it's safe and right to do so is the important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So another of the questions is, when you have meets, do you sort people out? This is Elaine. Do you sort people into levels of experience? Is it a case of more experience helping out, or do you use guides?
Good question. So we do all of those things. So Jenny is hoping to organise skill shares in the UK, and those will be where more experienced members help people with less experience in various activities. But in our meets, we do a bit of both. So in some cases in our meets, it's members looking after each other. And also we have fully qualified guides giving workshops. So some women some women buddy up and do things together if they're at a similar skill level. Some women, you know, take each other out if they're slightly more experienced in one thing or another. And then some women put themselves on skills workshops and skill up. And you can do any combination of those on any of our meets. So you could just come and meet new buddies and go and play with them and not have any skills workshops, or you could join some skills workshops, or you could have like a fully instructed week and go crazy. And we had women on in Hempstead last year that did beginners cross country ski, beginners ski touring, and beginners ice climbing in a week. Wow. So
and I think there's a lot of conversation. Everybody wants it to last 2 weeks, because once you've done 1 week, you're like, I don't want to go, I want to keep going. So that's been asked of us as well, like, can we do the meets over 2 weeks, because you want to get those skills and then go out with your buddies that you've made. I'll go back to another question.
Just before the workshops, we don't just do workshops for beginners, so we're very keen on kind of more like improvers and more experienced people having input as well from the guides, because I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
So what we tend to do is put an expression for interest for meets, see who we've got, ask you some more questions so we can tailor the provision that we give around. We're not a package holiday, we're a club, so we kind of expect people to look after themselves a little bit more in terms of like feeding themselves and staying places and stuff like that. But in terms of guiding and sorting out activities, we'd really try and make it a bit more personal around what you want to improve on and what you want to do as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's a really good point. So at Hempstead, we did have, we had people who were on advanced ice, where they were learning more kind of advanced skills. Kat, you had a question. Have you thought about paid membership? We certainly have, and we would like to obviously do that, and not because we any of us want to do this as a career. We very much pour love and energy into this because this is something that we really believe in, not because we want it to be our day jobs. But having said that, definitely it would help us towards admin costs at the moment. We're paying for even just things like website hosting out of our own pockets. So yes, absolutely. And I guess the question that I would say is, it would be lovely if you could write in the chat, everybody, what you thought about that, and also what would be of most value to you. So what you get most value out of. So is it the provision of a website with a member directory? Is it the how-to videos? What would you most like us to do to support you as a community? Because we're definitely open to doing that, and I think we will be thinking next year, as we mentioned, we want to have some local ambassadors and have a few more schemes running. That means that we're a bit more international and that people can reach out to each other. But yeah,
I think we made a mistake with question number 2 and not letting people click all the things that they wanted. So if you did, Wendy, you've written, I wanted to click all of the things on question number 2, which is what would you like to see more of us do? So if you feel the same, if you could add that into the chat, we can look over this.
Sorry, yeah,
develop a club. It really does, because these are all things we're figuring out, how our meets are going to be run and how the club's going to be run and all of this.
Yeah, and I would say that kind of, although you've heard a lot from us tonight, we very much see this as your club, that we just currently help to facilitate at the moment. So if anybody wants to get more involved, or they have any ideas, or if anybody wants to run a poll better than I have done in the last 10 minutes, that would be fab. But any help or any direction, gratefully given. So if you have a brilliant idea about what would be valuable for the club and what would help you get stuff out of it, do just pop it into Facebook, pop it, we're completely open and transparent. So just put it wherever, and we will listen and take heed and try and help. And we just thank you all so much for supporting us.
Yeah, I've got another question from Facebook. So Mel is asking, how do you do meets in the UK? Or I think she's asking, do we do meets in the UK as well as all the amazing destinations that we've mentioned? And that's something that basically COVID sort of scuppered our plans this year to do. We had 3 UK skill meets set up for this past summer. So as soon as we're able, and I think that's part of the whole local ambassador scheme as well, is that we'll hopefully have skills meetups and just fun meetups and things like that in local areas, as well as the sort of international destinations.
Yeah, and as well, that's what we're thinking with the local ambassadors. So we're very much keen to not just be kind of UK focused in our local meets as well. So it would be nice, for people that live in France or live in Germany or wherever they happen to live, to get together and do the similar sort of skills shares. But yeah, we'll definitely be running them in the UK as soon as we can, and that will probably happen before the next sort of international meet.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's some great ideas coming in here, guys, in the chat, and we're really grateful for that, because you know, we don't want to sit here in isolation and make decisions and go around in circles. So one of the questions I noticed was, how do you join the club? And at the moment, I would call us more of a community than a club, in that we basically haven't been able to formalise club stuff, official stuff. We're still very we're putting stuff together and trying to work out ways of how we can be a formal entity. It's slightly difficult because we're international. So we're working out whether we want to be a BMC, which is the British Mountaineering affiliated club, but then that has difficulties around international members, or whether we want to set up as a kind of a community interest company, so like a social enterprise. You know, we're kind of making this up as we go along slightly. So if anyone has any experience, I know we've had some really generous offers as well from people helping with the legal side of things. So if anyone has any experience in the financial side of running a club, setting one up, kind of being a social enterprise, anything like that, would be really gratefully received. You know, we're all volunteering here, and we're trying to put it together the best we can. I think once we have decided what we want to be and who we want to be legally, then it will probably be some kind of paywall on our website, because we're quite keen to get our message out and kind of share skills for free, but then have some kind of additional benefits for members perhaps, and we'll need to kind of work it out how that's going to work on our website.
And at the moment, the way to join the club is to follow our private Facebook group and to sign up to our newsletter. And that's the most immediate way that you'll learn about when all of our talks are, you'll learn when we're going to have meets again, and you'll get updates on all this, you know, all these decisions, and, you know, taking parts in polls, and these types of, you know, the conversation that Jenny's having now about what we're going to be and how we're going to be that, and who can help and get involved. So definitely sign up to the newsletter if you haven't already, and if you're a woman, join the private Facebook group. If you're one of our fans and you're a guy, like the page, and we put information there on sort of co-ed things like the talks. And good idea with the donation button. It would be good to know who we are and what we are before we just start taking money.
But we will ask for money at some point, but we feel like we should have a legal entity of some description before we start to do that. But thank you all. It's really positive to hear that you're thinking similar things, because it means that we are thinking in the right direction, and all your suggestions are gratefully received, and we will take heed of all of the ones in the chat. So
and if you think of any other later, add them to the, you know, Facebook group, or contact us. I think we're 10 minutes over, so I might move on from the Q&A.
Should we end the poll?
Yeah,
I'll end poll. Can I click? I've done it.
You can do it, Louise. Well done.
Oh, share results. Does nobody else see them yet?
Okay, nice.
No.
Mountaineering.
I'll say the winners are.
Yeah.
Mountaineering.
So for you guys,
Wendy says they can see them as well. Sorry, Wendy. we won't follow
everybody who's watching on Facebook. So what was your favorite Alpine activity? The winner by a long shot, 91% of people said winter mountaineering. Question 2, what would you like the club to do more of? International meets, 100%. I think everybody is just keen to get together and be in some fantastic location, having an adventure. And then would you donate towards a space? There's actually quite a lot of people who said no, but an equal number of people who said maybe, and then a nice percentage of people who said yes. So hopefully those people who say yes and maybe will be enough to get us a few spaces on one of our meets or our local skills sessions. So that's fantastic. So just moving on, of course, this is the first in our winter series for Alpine Stories, and we have some amazing talks coming up, including our next one by Pretty Wright, and she is going to talk about the adventures that she and her husband have had through 2020, which is pretty incredible, the things that they've done, and then to do them during a global pandemic. They call themselves Alpine Vagabonds. So globetrotting from Patagonia, climbs around the Alps, culminating in a successful ascent of K6 in Pakistan. So that's going to be amazing. Definitely say that you're going on the Facebook group so that you get the reminder for 2 Tuesdays from now. And then on the 8th of December, I can't believe we're in December, join us for Margot Talbot's talk, All That Glitters, where she talks about her journey as a climber through addiction and depression. She is a really, really incredible woman, and that is promising to be a really fantastic talk. On the 22nd of December, we have a surprise Christmas special. So join us for that, for a bit of cheer. Like, hopefully we won't be in lockdown, but we'd really love to see you guys. We miss you. So we want to do something nice for Christmas. And then, oh my God, 2021, we're talking about dates in January. We're gonna have a really great talk from Sally Lal about new routing in Mexico, what drives her for this kind of adventure, what it's like to put up new lines, and what it's like to lead this type of adventure when there is so many unknown factors. That's going to be a really, really great talk as well. And in January, second one in January is going to be my very good friend Solani Mead, and with her talk, Black People Can't Ski. In case you haven't seen her article with the same title, go read it. It's fantastic. And we thought it would make for a really great talk where she's going to share her own experience and discuss ethnic stereotypes in sort of outdoor adventure sports. So we actually have a couple more that will be happening through February, and we might even have one in March, but we've got lots and lots of talks. We really hope that you join us for those. They're all listed on the website, and they're all listed on Facebook. So different ways that you can find us. We've got our website, womensalpineadventureclub.com. We've got Instagram, we've got the 2 Facebooks, so the private one for ladies only on the group, and for everybody on our Facebook page. Sign up to the newsletter. It's the best way to get the latest news. Whenever anything big is happening, we'll be sending details there. And we just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. You know, we haven't been able to see your faces this time, but just knowing that you're there and getting your comments. Thank you on Facebook. Thank you here on Zoom. And we can't wait to get together very soon. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Tell all your friends.
Stay safe.